was going to present for you.
You should have.
I told
Could have put it easier.
I know the bill.
Good morning. We're going to go ahead and call the Accountability and Administrative Review Committee to order. We will start as a subcommittee until we can establish a quorum. Senator, thank you for blessing us with your presence this morning.
Thank you. You're welcome.
If you'd like to begin on file item number 2, but first let me state that file item number 1, AB 1405 by Assemblywoman Grove, has been pulled from the agenda. Senator, whenever you'd like to begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Let me begin by accepting the amendment suggested on page 3 of the committee analysis. I want to thank the chair and the committee staff for working with me on this amendment to resolve a concern the UC raised when this bill was heard in Higher Education Committee last week. The amendment clarifies that this bill will not affect the university's ability to contract unique personal services such as cultural and musical performances. This bill requires the University of California, when evaluating bids for contract work, to evaluate the total employee compensation package, including benefits such as health care, and ensure that this does not undercut wages and benefits of existing university employees. When you examine what subcontracted workers look like across the country, you find that 40% of them are Latino nationwide, 60% of them are women of color, and 30% are millennial women of color. The University of California is the third largest employer in California. With such a large employment footprint, UC has a special obligation to lead, not to follow. Nothing in this bill prohibits university from contracting out services, and it certainly will not prevent them from contracting out for unique specialist services. SB 376 simply requires that the businesses providing subcontracted services for work that is already being performed by university employees tell UC that the wages and benefits they provide their employees do not undercut the wages and benefits that UC pays its own employees for doing the same job, members. That's for doing the exact same job. Those same tough, unseen, often overlooked jobs. Members, our finest educational institutions should not be engaged in the race to the bottom for pay and benefits for its workers. I respectfully ask for your aye votes.
I'll move the bill.
Thank you. And I believe you have a testimony in support.
Yes. Good morning, Chairman Salas and members of the committee. My name is Catherine Leibarger. I'm president of AFSCME 3299, the University of California's largest employee union, and I am also the president of the California Labor Federation. I'm here in support of SB 376, which guarantees equal pay for UC subcontractors who perform the same jobs as career UC employees. Specifically, SB 376 would require private companies that provide more than $100,000 worth of clerical service or patient care technical services to the University of California to pay their employees comparable wages and benefits to career UC employees performing similar work. Right now, we know that UC has at least 45 private contracts in place, ranging from custodial and food service to groundskeeping, parking, and transport services. Cumulatively, these contracts involve thousands of UC workers and primarily immigrants and people of color who are paid up to 53% less than full-time UC employees doing the exact same jobs at the same locations, reporting to the same supervisors. While some assert that subcontracting is designed to meet a temporary need, there's nothing temporary about subcontracting in practice. Since 2009, so-called temporary employees have grown at 9 times the rate of career employees across America. At UC, where the number of students and facilities have grown dramatically since 2009, the number of career service workers has actually decreased. Employees at Impact Group, for example, provided custodial services at UCSF over much of the past 4 years. These employees were paid as little as $10.74 an hour with minimal benefits, while the career employees they worked alongside at UC made as much as $18.67 an hour, including benefits. I don't have to tell you what a difference such a disparity makes to a family living in the San Francisco Bay Area. As you know, the United States today has become more unequal in income than any other place in the world. And there are a few states today where this is more evident than in California. It's home to the highest cost of living and some of the highest poverty rates in the nation. Ironically, UC turns out some of the best studies on this issue. A 2012 UC Berkeley study found subcontracted building, groundskeeping, and maintenance workers are 2 times more likely to live in poverty, 3 times more likely to require some sort of taxpayer-supported public assistance. Another UC Berkeley study concluded that subcontracted food service workers require an additional $1,700 per year in public assistance. That's why it's important to understand what SB 376 does and what it doesn't do. It doesn't in any way inhibit UC's ability to subcontract. It does ensure that where such practices are warranted, private contractors are treating their workers fairly and not shifting their labor costs to the backs of state taxpayers. Absent SB 376, no such protections currently exist. We respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Let me at this moment establish quorum. Madam Secretary, if you could call the roll.
Salas?
Present.
Salas present. Lackey? Here. Lackey present. Bro? Here. Bro present. Burke? Frazier? Frazier present. Gaines? Irwin? Medina? Medina present. Rodriguez? Rodriguez present.
All right. Thank you. Let's proceed with testimony in support.
I'll move the bill again. I'll second it again.
Now that we have quorum, duly noted.
Mr. Chair, members, Brian Allison on behalf of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Just wanted to quickly add that the legislature over 18 years ago stepped in and told the university that having 4 classifications of temporary workers was unacceptable, and this body helped to address the issue by making these workers full-time. So unfortunately, we're in a place right now where we're still witnessing subcontracted job, as evidenced by the testimony from President Liebarger. We're asking the UC as a valued and leading institution in education to ensure that they can do better for their employees and taxpayers here in the state of California. We're asking for due diligence, transparency, and accountability. Asking for your vote.
Thank you for your testimony. Additional testimony in support. Please.
Sorry. Michael Young, California Labor Federation, also here in support.
Thank you. Additional testimony in support. Hearing and seeing none, let me ask for testimony in opposition.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Jason Murphy on behalf of the University of California. Unfortunately, I must rise today in opposition to this bill. I think it's important to note that the University of California does contract out for a variety of services in addition to those that are stipulated in this bill. I think we've asserted in past committees, and we'll do so again today, that it's important, we believe, for the university to continue to have the flexibility to contract out in similar fashions in the future. Again, the primary reasons why we contract out are in the cases where we have need for special expertise, short-term help, special services and equipment and so forth. I'd also point out that our collective bargaining contracts now include provisions that relate to contracting out. It's Article 5 in a couple of the contracts that relate to the employees we're talking about here. Those articles in the existing contract specify that the university shall not contract out in instances solely for the purposes of saving salary and so forth. Also provides protections for any employees that are affected by any contracting out, ensuring that they have a similar job at the same location, the same pay rate, and so forth. And so what we would point out about this bill is that it does include, recognizing today's not a fiscal committee, but it does include significant fiscal impact to the university. It essentially turns on its head the longstanding public contract code provisions that relate to low bidding, competitive bidding for these types of services. I do appreciate the comment and the amendments taken. That is something that solves one of the issues the university has raised. However, there's still plenty in this bill that we dislike. We feel the bill targets the university solely. We would note that the California State University does not have similar rules here, nor do the California community colleges, and for those reasons we remain opposed. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Let me turn it to the dais for questions. Assemblymember Medina.
I had a question for the representative from the University of California.
First, let me thank the author for accepting the amendments that clarified for UC what is accepted for or restricted in the bill, and giving UC still more flexibility in bringing in the kind of cultural and arts that we spoke about when the bill came to higher ed. So thank you to the author for that. But I hear two things. I hear the bill saying that, and it's in the text of the bill, that there are employees doing the job that UC employees are doing, and at the same time, I hear UC saying that you're not doing it to save money, but then in the other hand, you say that this is going to cost you money. So I'm having a hard time trying to understand both sides. I mean, either you're saving money now, right? Either you're saving money now, or it's going to cost you more money now. But both can't. It seems that both can't be true. And you're having employees already doing the same thing, that UC employees are doing, and answering to the same supervisors.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Medina. I think the issue with respect to perhaps employees working side by side, I don't know the particulars of the cases that have been raised by the proponents of the bill. It may be very, very clearly the case that those instances are taking place in perhaps some of our clinical enterprises where they're perhaps operating in leased facilities. It is the case that current law allows the university to contract out in situations where those employees are working in leased facilities. So that may be that's the best answer I can provide for that scenario. In terms of the question whether or not we're saving money or not, and whether this bill would cost us, I think it goes back to the notion that when we believe we're bringing folks in cases perhaps other than those that were just raised, for purely temporary purposes, we're saving money versus having to employ someone on an ongoing basis throughout the year. And so I think we believe that in the vast majority of cases, we're bringing in staff who are working for short periods of time, are providing specialized services, perhaps specialized equipment and so forth, but they're not on salary for the entirety of the year. And so if we were to, going forward, have to ensure that all the folks that we hire in the contracted settings are earning the exact same salaries, we think that's where the cost comes in.
Trying to be clear, are you saying that they're not food service workers and custodial workers and groundskeeper who are also being hired as temporary workers and not remain temporary workers for quite a long time? Because that's my understanding.
I think there are instances where perhaps they are maintaining in that classification for a long period of time. I think the situations where they are not maintaining those long-term contracts.
And I would just for the record again, say what I said in higher education, that when UC talked about efficiency, I'm all for efficiency, but I think that UC deserves to treat its employees fairly, and that as it looks for efficiency, maybe it should look elsewhere than rather the lowest paid workers. And for that reason, I'm in support of this bill this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Medina, for your question. And actually, it reminds me of when I was watching higher education. I believe during the testimony, UC said they were going to provide wage and benefit information as well, so that we could do that cost analysis and see if that efficiency is there. If I remember correctly, I think that was going to be provided to the author. Was that ever done? And maybe it can help clarify and alleviate some questions.
I believe
Chair, we're going to work those issues out if and when the bill gets out in appropriations to look at the cost benefit analysis.
Thank you. Additional questions from members from the dais?
I don't really have a
Senator
question.
Lackey.
I have more a comment about the bill, and I appreciate the author's desire to try to level the playing field. But I am frustrated by the fact that we have people working diligently and receiving what is questionable compensation. However, one of the biggest issues this last year has been the cost for students and their tuition in the UC system. And $60 million is a lot of money, and I fear that would be passed on to the students. And I think that that's a bigger problem And I just hope that we can find a different solution to this circumstance here, because I think that this will be directly negatively impacting the students, which is why the institution exists. So I won't be able to support this measure today.
Thank you, Mr. Lackey. Additional questions, comments for members from the dais? Assemblymember Frazier.
Thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. I think that, and my colleague, Mr. Lackey, saying that it will affect the students, I'm concerned about the whole body, the employees that are the backbone of the university that are supported also, because without them, we have nothing. We have no institution or a foundation to be able to provide this education to them. And so to acknowledge that they are doing a day's work for a living wage has to be acknowledged. And so I'm looking forward to this bill moving forward through the legislature. But on a point of Mr. Medina's questioning, what kind of time frame do you consider temporary workers, or is that in your collective bargaining that says 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Because I think that's an imperative that we know. Because if it's an ongoing kind of employment, where do you draw the line?
Thank you for the question. I would note again with regard to leased facilities, we are allowed to contract for employees on an ongoing basis who are contracted out. So in the other cases, with regard to the examples where we would truly consider them short-term, I don't believe our contracts specify a length of time. I can certainly check and get back to you, but certainly with respect to Article 5 and the other provisions of the contracts, I don't believe there's a stipulation as to the length.
Okay, another question would be, do you have evergreen contracts with temporary agencies where you have an ongoing force account that they are supplied on a continual basis, employees, so that you can just call them at will?
There may be examples. What we've certainly understood from the review we've been doing in response to Mr. Lara's question is we have many contracts. We may very well have those along the lines of what you suggested. The review we're undergoing now in order to respond to Mr. Lara will probably bring that up, and I'll make sure to respond back to you when I see the additional detail.
Okay. Might I suggest that you start cross-training some of your employees, too, as a possibility of being of value in different aspects of what you need also? I think that would actually bring a lot of value, not only that, but longevity for your employees and not having to bring in additional staff to create opportunity.
Very well.
Okay. Additional comments, questions from members from the dais? Hearing and seeing none, let me offer some comments of my own, and Senator, I'll allow you to close afterwards. But the way I see it, this is a question of whether we value employees at the UC. When you look at the rates, 2 times most likely going to be in poverty, 3 times, I think it was said earlier in testimony, to be on public assistance. And there's nothing in this bill that would preclude the UC from still contracting out.
Correct.
And I think you crafted a very narrow measure that does protect folks and brings accountability and transparency. So with that, it does have a due pass recommendation from the chair. Senator, I'll allow you to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the discussion, and I want to take a second to answer Senator Lackey's question. You know, there's no doubt that these workers also contribute to the overall experience of our students at the University of California. And to again state that we've taken amendments to address the issues by Assemblywoman Irwin, ensuring that the UC can still contract out, and we have exemptions, especially for special expertise, which we never want to. We want to ensure that our students have access to this expertise, because this, you know, what makes the UC a great institution, and in particular special performances as well. And I'll note that in UC Berkeley's own study, members, it says, you know, in the executive summary, the first point, temporary and subcontract arrangements erode wages. These lowered wages mean that contingent workers rely more on state safety net. Exactly what we talk about here, members. Temps in California were twice as likely as non-temps to live in poverty, receive food stamps, and be on Medicaid. Members, this is not the University of California that we should expect. We should ensure that all our workers have an opportunity to succeed. And the other thing, and Senator Frazier brought this to my attention, I was going to close with this, is maybe we should redefine what temporary means for the UC, because we know that there are dozens of custodians working at UCSF that have been there in a temporary position for 4+ years. That, to me, is not temporary. So maybe we need to come up with a better definition for what temporary means for the UC. And with that, members, I respectfully ask for I vote.
Thank you, Senator. Madam Secretary, call the roll. It's been moved by Mr. Medina, seconded by Mr. Frazier.
The motion is due pass as amended and refer to Committee on Appropriations. Salas.
Aye.
Salas, aye. Lackey. Lackey, no. Bro. Bro, no. Burke. Frazier. Frazier, aye. Gaines. Gaines, no. Irwin.
Aye.
Irwin, aye. Medina.
Aye.
Medina, aye. Rodriguez. Rodriguez, aye.
We have Senator, you have 5 votes. That's enough to get out of committee. We'll hold it open for additional members to add.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
Okay.
Which temporary?
Okay, members, we're going to go ahead and recess until about 10:05. We'll hold the roll open for our last member to vote, and then at 10:05 we will start the informational hearing. So this meeting of Accountability Administrative Review is on recess until 10:05.
For allowing me to be at the hearing. I'm just looking forward to going more in depth. I know I've worked with OES quite a bit in my district, especially in Tulare County. So I'm looking forward to the outcome of the hearing and getting more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. First, let me begin by kind of setting the stage a little bit. We know that we're in a historic drought, another additional year of a historic drought. We've all read the headlines where we are looking at communities drying up. I can't tell you how many times I think I saw the list of the top 10, top 9 U.S. cities potentially running out of water. When I look at that list, I know those are some of the cities definitely in my district. When you look at, for instance, the city of Hanford or the city of Bakersfield, for instance, I know that there's communities up and down the Central Valley and actually throughout the state of California. Looking at DWR's website, we did find also, as of June of 2015, that 1,900 dry wells throughout California have affected over 9,500 people. Tulare County, which is in Mr. Mathis's district, seems to be an epicenter for some of these reports that we've been seeing in the media and what's kind of being done by not only the locals but the Office of Emergency Services as well. So today's hearing, and the purpose of today's hearing, is to see not only what are we doing for those places that are being affected now, but also those places that will be affected come August, September for some of these additional communities that are looking to run out of water, whether that's on the east side or west side of the valley or in other communities throughout the entire state. So first, let us begin with our first panel, which is the Office of Emergency Services. I'll allow you guys to introduce yourselves, and maybe we'll just jump right into it. So please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Salas. And first, I'd like to extend regrets from Director Mark Ghilarducci, who you had invited to participate today. Unfortunately, he had another commitment in Southern California that he had to attend to today. So myself and Mr. Rababad will be here representing Director Ghilarducci today, but he definitely is very passionate about directing our statewide emergency response as the chair of the Governor's Drought Task Force, and wished he could be here today. My name is Eric Lamro. I am a regional administrator for the Cal OES Inland Region. Cal OES is divided into thirds operationally. Our inland region stretches from Kern County in the south up through the valley to the California-Oregon border. Our coastal region goes from Del Norte County down to Monterey County, and then our southern region are our Southern California counties, and then up the eastern Sierras to Mono County. When it comes to drought, most of our most significant impacts, as the chair touched on earlier, are isolated throughout the inland region. And my team, as well as Mr. Rabamad's recovery team, are spending most of our time addressing drought issues throughout that inland part of California. Today, we look forward to highlighting the work being done by Cal OES to support the drought emergency throughout California. As I indicated, I'm joined by my colleague Charles Rabamad, Assistant Director of the Cal OES Recovery Division. Together, our regional response and disaster recovery teams have been charged with supporting the local Office of Emergency Services and their community partners as we work to get water to individuals that are experiencing dry wells. And that's most of what I'll talk about today. Mr. Rabamad will focus on our State Operations Center and their efforts to support the multi-agency coordination on a number of other issues that we're tackling, water system issues and other challenges that we're experiencing. When it comes to dry wells, as the chair noted, currently there's more than 1,900 wells reported statewide. Tulare County residents have taken the hardest hit with more than 1,200 dry wells in Tulare County, approximately 700 of those within the unincorporated community of East Porterville. At Cal OES, our job under the Governor's State of Emergency is to direct state agencies in support of local governments. Our job is to pull together state agencies to expedite the delivery of emergency resources to counties as they work to tackle the challenge of getting water to their residents. In September, the governor authorized us to use the California Disaster Assistance Act to fund local programs to get residents water for drinking and for sanitation. Those efforts have been considerable. Mr. Rabamad will get into the details of what we have expended thus far, but currently the primary focus of our programs has been in our southern San Joaquin Valley area, in the Kern County, Tulare County, Fresno, Madera, Merced, and then on up into the foothills in Mariposa and Tuolumne. In Tulare County, we've got active programs underway. There are approximately 800 homes that are receiving bottled water that's funded through the State Water Board's Cleanup and Abatement Program. Our program is supporting the delivery of community water tanks within East Porterville that provide non-potable water to the residents. Also the establishment of household tanks. Our efforts are focused on trying to get a tank in the yard of every home that has a dry well, and currently there's approximately 150 of those tanks that have been installed, and the production schedule for those installations has increased recently, given our ability to secure some additional water sources for Tulare County. Also in Tulare County, we've been working collaboratively with the Department of Water Resources to secure funding for a well that will immediately help East Porterville with source water for these tanks as we set them up, and then in the long term be source water that we can use to help permanently connect at least some initial homes, approximately 100 to 150 homes in East Porterville, to the city of Porterville's water system. We've got additional active programs going in Tuolumne County. In Tuolumne County, we've got close to 200 wells that have run dry. We're currently delivering water to 66 homes. 56 homes had 56 new tanks were installed. Other homes had tanks already in place, which in our mountain communities, we're finding a lot where there's existing tanks, and so it's much easier for us to deliver water to those communities. Tuolumne County's done an exceptional job, too, through this process, looking at establishing long-term connections, and that's something that we focus on when we work on delivering our program to communities, is ensuring that they're looking at those long-term solutions, that this is not just putting a tank tank in someone's yard and walking away. We want to, wherever possible, permanently resolve the situation. So in Tuolumne County, we've got 23 homes that had dry wells that were connected to the Tuolumne Utility District. In Mariposa County, there's another 50 homes that are receiving water, and we expect in the coming days to see programs launching in Merced and Fresno counties. Those will probably be the next up. Madera County, Madera and Fresno are the next up. Merced County and Kern counties will probably be coming online after that. And then across the state, and we're seeing more and more counties to the north that are inquiring about our program, how to utilize the program, how it works, because the program allows counties to establish a relationship with a nonprofit to actually implement these water delivery programs. And we have a number of counties throughout the Central Valley and Northern Sacramento Valley, and here in the Sacramento area, Yolo County in particular, that have recently received briefings from our recovery and regional response staff. So as I indicated earlier, the majority of our impacts currently are being felt the greatest throughout the inland region, but our coastal and southern regions continue to closely monitor situations and issues throughout their areas as well. And although dry wells is our focus, we oftentimes are challenged to help coordinate multi-agency response to other system issues, and that's where the support of Mr. Rabamad's team and our State Operations Center staff is key. So I'll hand it over to Charles to make some additional remarks.
Thank you, Eric.